Hello, welcome to this session that's on student support services at the American University of Paris. This is part of a series of virtual events for admitted and prospective students who are applying to AUP. My name is Kevin Fore, and I'm the Dean of Student Development at the American University of Paris. Under the Student Development umbrella, you have a number of offices that includes the counseling office, the health office. We have a cultural program, a student leadership program, a student development help desk. All of these units come together to provide services and supports for all AUP students. So we're going to be talking a bit about that today. And it's really my great pleasure to have Lizzie and Marion with me. They accepted my invitation for this session, and I'm really thrilled about that. Marion is a junior. She's French and Congolese. She's majoring in global communications and minoring in art history. And Lizzie is American. She's majoring in international and comparative politics and minoring in environmental policy. So in this short session, we've got about 45 minutes. We're going to talk about their experience as students at AUP. We think that through hearing their stories, you'll have a better sense of what it means to be a student here. And it'll help you to have a sense of the different services available to you. Whether you come to France for the first time and you don't speak the language and maybe haven't ever lived in Paris, which is the case for many of our incoming students, or you're French and are very familiar with not just the language, but the culture, we think this session is really for everybody. And without further ado, I think we're just going to get right into the conversation with Marion and with Lizzie. I thought it'd be interesting to start with a few words about their experience as incoming students. And we chatted about this a bit before the session. To go back and think that first semester at AUP, even before they arrived at AUP, what was that like for them? And so I'm going to put that first question to both of them. And remember, guys, you can also put questions back to me as well. But if you think back to those first days, those first weeks, the first months, what was one of the biggest challenges that you faced? And how did you overcome that at the time? Why don't we start with Marion? Would you like to?
Sure.
Yeah.
So for me, I think the biggest challenge was like starting a whole new system, the American system, like just after my graduation, because I was in a French high school. And so there was a lot of that adjusting and just figuring everything out. But what I did was ask for help a lot. I contacted all the resources and like all the offices that I needed to contact. And yeah, I really just asked help whenever I needed it. And I made great friends through First Bridge, which was really helpful during my first semester because I always had people to talk to and to like lean back on. So yeah.
And where did you go to high school?
My dad is a diplomat, so I went into multiple countries, but my high school was in Burkina Faso, which is a country in Western Africa.
Okay, thank you. Lizzie, how about you?
I'd say it was like a massive culture shock for me. Personally, I am one of the students who moved to Paris after never living abroad, and I'm American, and I only spoke English really at the time. So it's just kind of, going headfirst into a new culture, new language. And I was very, very excited. But I'd say like the biggest challenge was really time management, because it wasn't just, you get up and you go to class. It's when am I going to budget time to study? When am I going to budget time to go grocery shopping? All the while you are in this huge city with museums and parks and just an abundance of things to do. So I'd say the biggest challenge was really time management, but the kind of like what Marion said, being able to fall back on the First Bridge classes and having those, especially those professors, because you had two classes where they just, for me personally, I don't know if this is how it is, but they overlapped. So always being able to, have students to study with, and then having people to go out with, and just people in the city now that that was very, very helpful.
And so for those of you who may not know, First Bridge is an academic experience. Students take 2 courses their first semester with faculty. And the faculty, it goes beyond just learning in the classroom. The faculty also play a role in advising and making sure that students feel settled and really at home as of that first semester. So yeah, I believe that's accurate. It's an accurate experience for a lot of incoming students. You're adapting not only to the liberal arts education and managing your own time, but also to kind of living in Paris, being part of an urban campus. And you have a lot of autonomy. And at the same time, there are many services that can kind of come in and play a supporting role. So if you think back to that first semester, even the first year, what were some of the AUP offices or services that you found helpful or the most helpful? And maybe we'll go backwards. Lizzie, what would you say?
I'd say the health services were actually the most helpful my freshman year. I was really nervous. There was a point freshman year where I got sick and I missed class, and navigating going to the doctor, the insurance, and communicating with my professors were all things that I was very, very stressed about, that the health office handled perfectly. They helped me set up my doctor's appointment to make sure, and then continue to check up to make sure that I got the help that I needed. They helped me set up the insurance. So even though you're paying for your doctor's appointments, making sure that you get reimbursed. And they serve as that proxy when there's a language barrier. They make sure that they're in contact with the doctor, which is very, very helpful. And they also really made sure to communicate with the professors. If I needed, confirmation, if a professor needed confirmation, why were you out? They were very, very helpful in making sure that there was a smooth line of communication, not just, you're not in class. So I think that freshman year, the health services were very, very helpful, and also the student development help desk. Any questions you have, whether it's about the bank, phone, really any number of things, setting up your phone, they were always there for any questions that you may have.
Yeah, the help desk is a great example. We have 2 staff members stationed at that desk, and it's really a place to go if you don't know where to go, if you're not sure, how to manage a problem. They can help with everything from getting your Metro card set up and getting your bank account opened, to deciphering some document in French that you don't understand, making phone calls, or even in more emergency kind of situations, maybe you have your phone is stolen, you're not sure how to manage that. Well, they'll get on the phone. They can even be in touch with the police in a case like that. So I think it's reassuring to know that they're there. Absolutely. Marion, how about you? What were some of the services that helped you that first semester?
For me, I would say the student recruitment team, because I was still in Burkina Faso when I got my acceptance letter. So I got immediately contacted, and it was like such a big help because there were so many things that I needed to do. There was a checklist, and I did not know how to access it because it was my first time. And so they really helped me through that. And I would also say, service accounting services. Because they helped me to try and for tuition, and it was really helpful, and it was like a big weight lifted off me because that can be so stressful sometimes. So I'd say, yeah, those 2 offices were so helpful, and I think they really helped with the anxiety I could feel coming to AUP because I'm kind of really anxious. So that was really okay, you're fine, you're doing everything according to the time, you're doing everything perfectly, so you got this. And that was really great for me.
Help with a smooth transition once you finally did get here, even before you got here. Okay.
Yeah.
So thinking back again to those first days, first weeks, first months, if you had some advice to share with this incoming class, what would it be? One piece of advice, one recommendation. Marion?
I would say breathe in. It's fine. You have so many resources that you can fall back on. And I mean, personally, my experience with AUP's offices has always been positive. They're always nice and eager to help. So yeah, just breathe in. You got this. It's gonna be fun, and relax.
Okay. Lizzie?
I would say getting involved with the AUP community, and really I think that would be like the one piece of advice I would have given myself, is get as involved as just as possible. Like don't spread yourself too thin, but get involved in the things that you're interested in and branch out, because you meet new people, and you're kind of meeting like the base of the people who you're going to be around for the next 3 to 4 years. And it allows for you to get involved in the school community, in the Paris community. And yeah, I think getting involved in school is like very, very important.
I think that's great advice. And one of the advantages of a liberal arts education is that it's really a holistic educational experience. And a huge piece of it is what happens inside the classroom, but then you have so many opportunities to engage in co-curricular activities and activities in the city in Paris, right? And so that's how you make friends, that's how you learn new skills, that's how you develop a narrative about your education that you can then use once you do go out and decide to apply to graduate programs or look for work. So we'll talk more about how to get involved, I think, before the end of the session. We can come back to that. And speaking of that, one way to get involved, we have a student advisor program. And it's a peer advising program for incoming students. Every incoming student is assigned to an upper class student who will serve as their peer advisor, providing support, helping them with orientation and the landing process, really helping them to settle in during the first weeks at AUP, and then providing guidance throughout the semester. I actually got to know Marion through the student advising program, and she's really one of our stellar student advisors. I've gotten lots and lots of feedback about how she's doing a wonderful job as a student advisor. And so I thought it'd be interesting to have you speak a little bit about that, Marion. What is the program? Why is it meaningful? How has the experience been for you?
Sure. So it was a bit different this semester because of COVID. And so instead of having 2 days training and a whole week of orientation, we did the training in 1 day and had, I think, 2 days of orientation. It was stressful because for us student advisors, it was like you finish orientation and you go straight to class the day after. But it was rewarding. It was really, really rewarding because we got to guide those new students, and they were nice and it was fun. We talked about things. We had like a little activity where it was Discover Paris, 3 hours. I took mine all over the city. It was really cool. And I think it was reassuring as well for me because I had just arrived to AUP this semester, like fall 2019. So I was like, oh, that's what I looked like, really stressed, but it was all fun. And I was happy to give back the help I received. And so now, since orientation is over, we keep track. We're staying in touch with our advisees, talking to them through the phone, calling them if needed. And I had plans before COVID, but when COVID ends, hopefully when we can try to like go outside and walk a little, I would try to do that before the end of the semester. So just to be like, hey, that's it. That was our semester together and I hope you enjoyed it. But it was overall a really great experience for me, and I will definitely do it again because it was so rewarding and so pleasant and so fun also. And I got to meet new people. I became friends with people that I never talked to before. So that was really great.
What cohort did you have? What group of students?
I had transfers.
Transfer students. And where, just out of curiosity, where were they from?
Most of them were from California, actually, like 99% of them. And then I had a French one who arrived late, so.
Okay. So this semester we had about, I think 33 student advising groups. And as I said, every incoming student, from graduate students to even visiting students, are assigned to one of these student advisor groups. So it's an interesting thing to know as you're thinking about your first semester at AUP. You both mentioned COVID, and I don't think we can have this session without talking about COVID-19, unfortunately. I'd like to know, Lizzie, you were here in the spring, and of course, AUP, like all universities, had to start thinking about COVID. We really started to think about it in February, and things went very quickly from there. And we went into a lockdown in March. And so Lizzie, tell us a little bit about how that experience was for you, how the university managed that, and how your semester ended up as a result.
Well, so COVID, great question. So COVID, when you say the school started to manage it in February, so we started the shift to online classes, really following the spring break, monitoring where students were coming in from after traveling, and having them quarantine if necessary. And I remember in my French class, my professor had been exposed to someone who was ill with his child. And so my class had to go online before France went into a lockdown. And so we kind of figured out, okay, that was my largest class. There were about 25 students in it, I think, yeah. And we had to figure out how to use Teams, Microsoft Teams, and how can we continue to interact as a classroom. And it's a French class, so it's not just, it's interactive. Everyone's speaking with one another. We do group work. So that was my first experience with class being online. And it was perfectly fine. The transition was great. Obviously there are hiccups whenever there's any type of transition, but it went very, very smoothly. And the school had lots of advice. They have the IT center, or is it the IT center, and that's where you can go if you have any technological needs. And then when everything went into lockdown, there was a big rush where a large group of students left and went home, and then a large group of students stayed. I stayed, and where I lived did not have any Wi-Fi. Now that proved to be a big issue. So I emailed the school, and I only had like maybe 2 days to figure this out. And so I emailed the school very stressed, and I said, how am I supposed to do my classes online if I don't have access to Wi-Fi? So the school moved me into one of the apartments through the housing program. And so I had to go all the way across the city and move. And I ended up in a studio with lots of other AUP students in the same building. And so it was pretty unique because some people stayed in their own places, but I was able to see people, which made a really, really big difference. And then suddenly all of the classes are online. And at first it was difficult because you are in one place at the same time, and you have to figure out your own routine. And I think routine is really, really important, whether you are in the classroom or whether you're online. Establishing a good routine for your schoolwork and for your own well-being as a student is incredibly important. So figuring that out and navigating my own routine really, really paid off. I was able to, I had a lot of meetings with Kevin in the beginning, I think, trying to figure out, okay, how are you doing? Really just how are you doing? And following up with my coursework. And the professors were always there for you to speak to them. My professors made it very, very easy to communicate with them. If I had any issues, if I had any concerns, there was a point in maybe the middle of the semester where I felt like I was behind, and I was able to set up meetings with all of my professors within the week of me feeling that way. And I ended up with the best semester I've ever had at the university. And then even as far as getting involved with COVID, I'm now like more involved than I've ever been, and I'm home. So the school really makes the university accessible online. And one of the advantages, of course, is that because it's a small school, because there's small classrooms, you get to know your professors, you get to know all of the students in the class. And that allows just great communication. And and I just, it was COVID definitely has kind of put a bump in the road, has been a big bump in the road, but the school did a great job, and they're continuing to do so. I mean, with everything being online, I've been able to now do my second semester in a row online, and I have no complaints. So
let me talk about that, because we started the semester, so we kind of finished the spring semester, went into summer, started the fall semester with the option of being able to take courses remotely or on campus. And actually, a large number of students came back to campus, and the first weeks of the semester were on campus with students. We accommodated it in terms of space and social distancing, but most people were coming to campus. And then we did have to go to another lockdown, so we're back into remote learning now. A theme that comes up very often at AUP is, and in particular with the students that I work with, is leadership and community. Okay, and this idea of community, trying to build community, finding ways for us to come together is really important to many of our students. Even if a lot of students live out in the city and have their own lives, they also want to find a way to connect with the AUP community. And I know that's important to you, Marion. We've talked about that before. How have you found ways to do that this semester?
This semester, since I'm a student advisor, I have a weekly log with an academic advisor every week with another student advisor, which is great because like every once in a week, I just get to talk to them and just interact about anything really. Then I have, regarding student advising as well, I have a student advisor partner, which we kind of talk through WhatsApp and just like we called each other once or twice to just talk about everything going on. Then there was also a program which is called PeerPod. And I was really curious about that because I was like, that seems fun. And it's really just a discussion every once in a week to be sure that you're doing okay as a student, that you're not feeling too pressured. And we really talked about, like, it was last Tuesday for me. So we really talked about everything like TV shows or things you can do during lockdown, or if you just want to talk or send cute memes, you know, it was fun. And finally, for me, it was keeping track with my friends, like talk to them through text. I'm in some classes with them, but it was really nice to just get to talk to them. I had to do an interview for some interviews for one of my classes, and it was just really fun to see them, talk to them. We plan to do like a dinner on Zoom and lots of things to just keep in touch. And I think that's really helpful, and it just helps you just keep that sense of community, even though you cannot go outside, even though you cannot meet them in person. It's just really nice to still have that essence, I guess. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I think part of what I'm hearing, and actually a lot of the work that I do with students and my colleagues as well, is to help get the balance right between health and well-being and academics. And so whether it's reaching out to the health office because something, you know, physically you're not doing well, or we have 2 guidance counselors who can support students with their mental health, but also help them with time management and getting, you know, mediating with the professors if necessary. We know that if a student is struggling with their health, whether that's mental or physical, then that's going to have a ripple effect on their academic situation. And so getting that balance right is really important. And part of the balance is the social aspect, finding ways for students to connect and to make friends. So it's all part of a package for my department, the Student Development Department. And we're working on all of those different fronts to help students make the right connections and really enjoy their experience to the fullest. And of course, succeed academically. So let's talk about academics for a minute. We had discussed with Lizzie and Marion their majors and their kind of their academic, what they're really passionate about. And I was going to put the first question to Lizzie, basically. You know, given the international makeup of our student body, I mean, the figures change from year to year, but in particular, when you look at the undergraduate student body, we're looking at something like 92 different nationalities, people coming from all over the world, basically. I think that must have some impact on the way you learn. And I'm wondering if in the classroom, you could give an example of how that maybe has come up or been interesting for you.
Well, that's why I came to AUP, because I knew out of high school that I wanted to study politics. I came to AUP for diversity and opinion, and that's what you get in the classroom. I think in a number of classes, in particular, political philosophy, a history of fascism. Those 2 classes, I remember and I took them last year. I remember there being just a very diverse student body within the class, and maybe 20 kids in each class, students in each class. And what it does is it impacts the discussion because you have a multitude of perspectives. And when it comes to something like politics, you know, we are encouraged in class to speak and talk about what we want, because that, you know, prompting discussion, and even if it's difficult discussion, sometimes it's necessary. And there is so, I value it so much, being able to sit in a classroom and hear something that a political theory, for example, and then hear someone's perspective who's from a different country. It's so rewarding, because it's what makes AUP, I think. Being able to sit in a classroom and because you learn, it's not just the professors that you're learning from, you are learning from the people around you. And I think it's like overwhelming. I don't know. I think it's one of the best things about AUP, to be honest, is diversity in the classroom.
I think a lot of us agree with that. And, we're an American university, obviously. We're in France. We're not entirely American. We're not entirely French. We're something in between those two things. And then you bring in all of these other cultures, both outside of the classroom into the classroom space. So the idea, it is an American liberal arts education that we're providing. And we have students who are very familiar with that because they grew up in the American system and they're American themselves and they know exactly what that means. And then we have students who are coming from outside of that system and discovering it for the first time. Marion, I'm curious, how did you adapt to the liberal arts model? And did it come with any challenges?
It was easier than what I had anticipated because actually that's the reason I came to AUP. For me, I wanted to be able to do global comm and then do art history on the side because I wanted to be able to combine things that I liked and that were not necessarily the same or related to one another. And so I was really kind of scared about that, but it actually went pretty fine. I always find my balance. One thing that was tricky though for me was that all the classes were in English. So at first it was a shock. I was like, oh, okay, that's what we're doing. But it was easy, and my first bridge helped with that because it was hybrid, so it was both in French and in English. So it was kind of like a smooth transition to like fully English speaking classes. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, what about, and you can both answer this question, in not really even just your first year, but in all the time that you've been here, and you're both juniors now, tell us about a professor that you loved or a course that you loved and why. I'm not going to call on you. You choose who goes first.
Okay. For me, I would say it's not a professor, but it's like a duo of professor. It's my first bridge professors, Brenton Hobart and Natalie Debroise. It was, I think first bridge for me was one of the best experience ever. It was so fun. My first bridge was Paris, reality versus myth. So we read a lot of books. We looked at photographs, and we just like went around Paris. We went to Le Quartier Latin. We went to La Goutte d'Or. And it was just really nice. And it was just, I just learned so much about Paris. Even though I was familiar with the city, there was so much thing that I did that I never knew about and that were really interesting. And I got to read some classic French book that I never had the opportunity to read before. So yeah, for me, I would definitely say those two professors.
Okay.
I'd say for the two professors, if I could choose two, it would be Professor Kobzev. I've had him for comparative politics, 20th century diplomatic history, and now international politics of the environment, it's that by choice. I think that he's very, very passionate about politics and about the history behind politics. And he does a really great job creating these presentations for every single class and getting to know his students and making himself available to really communicate with students, because he really recognized like how difficult it was, especially going into quarantine. But it's also just, you learn so much sitting in the classroom. So, and if I could pick a definition of above and beyond, Professor Kobzev would kind of fit into that category. And then also my French professor, Professor Blacklane, I had him my first semester at AUP, and he always had activities that had us going out. And this was for French 1. And as someone who had never even studied French in high school, he really did a great job teaching us just the basics and the foundation. And even though it was a really, really big class, it was very interactive. And we always had once a week little trips out into the city. and we'd go and we'd be interacting with Parisians, and we'd be practicing speaking and practicing and applying everything that we had learned in the classroom. And it really, and by taking that first semester, it helped me kind of learn how to speak French and how to interact with people, because it's a language I didn't know. And I think he did a great job. And then I had him again for French 3, and at first we had these big group activities where we would split into groups and stuff. And just encouraging us to go out and really use the city as a resource, I think was great. So yeah.
Great. Thank you. I'm interested in your minors. Okay, so Marion she's majoring in global communications and minoring in art history. I think that's a really fantastic combination, and I'd like to hear more about that. Can you tell us?
Sure. So I've always liked art. I did some art classes when I was in middle school and high school. And I also like communication because I like how everything is going behind the scenes, the medias and everything. And you're just like, okay, that's like everything has a meaning. And yeah, but I chose a minor in art history because I never had the opportunity to study it as like a really deep study of like different painters and different sculptors and everything. And so I took my first art class last semester, so in spring, and actually the professor called me back this semester to tutor, so I was really happy about that. But it was so much, it was so much fun, and it was so nice because we were going to museum and we're seeing art that we never saw before. And also, I guess art history fits into what I want to do later on in life. I have the bold plan to open an art gallery and furthermore open other art galleries in African countries, primarily my home country, Congo, because I just think that with art, you can do anything, you can have a voice and you can make changes. And it's just such a soft way of just using your voice and saying that you're here and that you matter. And so, yeah, that's what I want to do later on, and use the funds to like do research and help like for issues like literacy worldwide or global warming. And so yeah, I just think that for me art history was like the obvious. I was like, global communication, that's for sure, but then that's also what I want to do. So yeah.
Thank you. That's amazing that you can articulate that so well. I look forward to having more conversations with you about that, because you're going to go into your senior year, and so I'm sure you're going to be thinking about what's coming next. So Lizzie, how about you? Because I think also you've chosen an interesting minor, obviously certainly a very relevant one in the environment and environmental studies. How did that come about?
So I didn't choose environmental policy until the end of last semester. I have taken all of these. I'm very, very passionate about politics, and I knew immediately before coming to AUP, this is what I want to study. But I realized like, okay, I kind of want to focus it. And you can focus it within the major. For ICP, you can choose world politics, development and like human rights, and then European and US politics. But I wanted to continue that. So my major focus is world politics, but then I've said, okay, what is it though that I want to study? And I'm passionate about global warming. And what it was is I actually read an article about the relationship between global security and global warming, and why it's really imperative that we are taking global warming seriously. And for a while now, it's I think it's just become apparent how important environmentalism is. So I decided that I just wanted to study more because I didn't know a whole lot about it. And the classes, when I looked at the classes that I needed to take for it, they were all very, very interesting and a little bit outside my comfort zone. As a political science major, I'm not used to taking math classes. I'm not used to taking science classes. And for this minor, I'm kind of taking a step outside of what I'm used to. I haven't taken them yet, but I obviously I will eventually. But even those classes, the science classes are focused in that area. So I thought that it would be a really, really great opportunity to learn about something that I want to know more about. But it's very, very focused. And also AUP's extracurriculars kind of coincide with that. There's AUP Green. I serve on the Environmental Sustainability Committee, and it's it all kind of jumbles together, I think. So
That's awesome. Well, let's talk about co-curriculars for a moment too, because I'm conscious of time, and I want to have a little time on that topic as well. I think it's really important to make the most of this experience as a student at AUP, getting involved in activities that you really care about, and taking a lead on those projects, right? Student-led initiatives are some of the most interesting and really wonderful ways to learn. And so I know you're both involved in different projects. Lizzie, why don't we talk about your role on student government a little bit? What is your position? How does that work? Why is it important?
So it's brand new. I saw that there was a position open to be the senator for my department. We have our student government, SGA, and it runs kind of the way the US government does, where you have the vice president of the student body, and then he is in charge of the senators, and then the senators are people or representatives from each department. So I'm the International and Comparative Politics Department representative, and I'm brand new at it. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to hold this position because I wasn't on campus, but it really hasn't been an issue. And my job really is to represent the department. What I'm trying to start some initiatives to really create more of a sense of community. You work with the department chair, and I assume at some point the faculty, although things are we're nearing the end of the semester, so I'm not sure if I'll get to do that. But we're looking at, starting a newsletter. So it's just kind of, I think really it's about establishing community within the major, or not just the major, the department. The ICP department, I believe, is the second largest at AUP. So when I sent out my first big email to the entire department, I saw that there were 92 people that I was sending it to, and I got very, very nervous. But the whole point is that you also represent all of the students. So if someone has a concern that they want to raise to Senate, they go to me, and then I would relay that information during Senate, and we meet every week. So then it's another opportunity to really get to know a ton of other students. I met people who I had never spoken to before in my third year, and that's been really great. And it's really also, you really get to get an in on kind of the behind the scenes and what's going on with student leader, not just students, but also the faculty and the staff who are involved. It's you kind of get to hear all the behind the scenes stuff too, and not only that, but be a part of it. So, and you also I think you can get funding for events and stuff like that.
You absolutely can. Yeah. That's a great.
That's a big one.
And it's really an exercise in democracy, right? It's like you get 25 people in the room with different points of view. How do you come together around a solution?
Yeah. And there are debates. I mean, we had a debate about giving funding to a magazine a couple weeks back, and it was my first time. I was like, oh wow, okay, this gets pretty heated. Like people, you really, because you sit there and you kind of got to hold your own. But I think it's great. It's great.
And Marion, you're also involved in a number of different co-curricular activities. Could you tell us a little bit about the French Club and what you do with the French Club?
Yeah, so I'm the communications director of the French Club. It's a club about French. Obviously, that was created, I think, a couple years back. So it's really fun. We meet we have activities. So back when we were under lockdown, we went to La Gaieté Lyrique or l'Atelier des Lumières, which are a big exhibition in Paris with really singular topics and singular arts, which was great. So we used to do that every other week. So do a big exhibition and just meet with people. And sometimes we would grab a drink afterwards. And we're actually mentored by Nathalie Debroise, my first bridge professor, which is really interesting because we have this kind of the input from a professor, which helps a lot. But usually we do the activities, we choose the activities ourselves, and she usually comes along. It's really fun. She also brings out a lot of ideas. And so, we also back last semester, we had dinners where we could talk in French, and it was really a big opportunity for people to just talk in French, but not feel pressured by the way there is in a classroom. It's just like we're like talking, we're chit-chatting, it's fun. If you don't know a word, you can ask to people. People are always super nice. And it helps also create a sense of new community, because there is, like, for example, I have the community of the student advisor, but then I have the French club, which is a bit different, and it's really more relaxed and laid back, and we just do a couple things that are out of the box and are really interesting, and usually people like what we do, so I guess that's nice. So
Have you had any challenges with the French club or any problems?
I like, now that there is COVID, we're trying to figure out activities that we can do online and, like, remote. That's tricky because we also have, like, a lot of, like, exams coming up, and, like, we're not always available at the same time. But we're also planning things for next semester just in case. But overall, I don't think we ever had, like, a big problem with the French club. It's always kind of laid back. People just, if they want to come, then they come. We talked. And if you don't want to, that's fine. There is absolutely no pressure. But usually we have, like, a strong core of, like, at least 10 to 15 students that always are here, which is really nice.
That's great. Yes, I think these are opportunities really to test your leadership skills, to be confronted with, like, how do you organize an event? How do you deal with maybe different points of view about the way you should manage something? How do you manage a budget? And so it's an opportunity to have fun and also to learn new things too. So thank you for sharing, both of you, on that. Well, we have just a couple of minutes left. Maybe this is your opportunity. Marion, Lizzie, do you have any questions for me? I've been asking all the questions today. You don't have to.
I kind of have one. It would be,
Okay.
how is it to, like, prepare every single semester to, like, orientation and, like, all the students coming back?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I've been at AUP for 15 years, or probably, I guess, more now. And I still love this job. I started out in my professional career doing copy editing and writing, and realized after a few years that really wasn't my calling. And so I looked for schools in Paris, international schools, and discovered AUP, and really immediately felt like I had found a home here. One of the things I love is I have a sense of purpose working with you guys. I mean, just hearing the two of you speak today, I'm really proud of both of you. I think we have amazing students who come to AUP, really often looking for things a little bit outside of the box, looking to have a different cultural perspective on the world. So adventurous and open-minded. And so that's the energy, I think, that comes with doing this job. I mean, it's certainly also very demanding. You both know, I mean, you see my schedule sometimes, juggling a lot of different issues. But at the heart of it, it's the joy of working with young students who are so enthusiastic about their studies, who are learning, who are engaged in activities that are helping them to improve and prepare themselves for the world, you know, that's awaiting them. And so the energy is there, it's naturally there. And then what's nice about the semester system is that it's cyclical, and we kind of know that there are peaks and valleys. There are challenges at certain points in the semester. It starts out with a lot of energy and enthusiasm. Everyone has a lot of freedom. And that's one of the challenges. And Lizzie, you kind of spoke to this, the time management piece of things. You have so much freedom to start with, and you have to really organize your time properly so that you don't feel like later in the semester, you're just totally overwhelmed. And my team is ready to kind of step in and help when that happens. It certainly happens often. And I think that's part of the learning process too. So I just think we have a routine. We kind of know what to expect doing it semester after semester. And then we rely on the students' really positive energy to help us get through every semester. So Lizzie, real quick, one final thing. I think we're out of time.
I don't think I have many questions. I just really want to stress, like, how even just as someone who had never spoken the language and never, lived abroad, every part of, like, the student development and the student help desk, that all of the services and the resources offered by the university, they help so much with every aspect, whether it's housing, whether it's health, whether it's mental health, whether it's just anything that you need, any question that you have, they're there, and they help you get it, whatever you need, they help you get it done. And so I thank you. I thank you for that. I mean, you've gotten me through how many crises at this point, but yeah, I mean, the transition can be difficult, but the university makes it that much easier. And you guys are very, very valuable. Very, very good.
I think that's probably a good place to end since we're out of time. I knew we weren't going to have enough time. There's always too much to talk about. But so I want to thank you all for joining the session today. I hope you found it valuable and interesting. We're going to be stopping the live stream in just a moment. If you have any questions about what you've heard today, you can reach out to an admissions counselor, or you can email them at admissions@aup.edu. Thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing many of you at AUP next semester or in the future.